G'day, this is Mike Smith for Xiaomi Websites, looking at the Jacobs Well Environmental Education Centre website operation. And this is the third in a short series of videos just giving an introduction into how to operate the website. This particular video is going to delve into some aspects of the theme and template, and some of these topics are going to be a little advanced, so this video is not intended to be a detailed how to do things video. It's just covering some of the topics in anticipation that some more training and some more detailed work will need to be done in these areas. So let's get started. Okay, so as you can see, I'm logged into the website already. And I'm just going to have a look at the dashboard here. I'm going to point out a couple of things that I've noticed with this website. Just waiting for the dashboard to load. Okay, now down the left-hand side, I notice this website is a little non-standard as far as WordPress websites are concerned. So for example, this portfolio tool is not always there. This must be part of the theme. This particular theme is no longer supported. It still works, but the authors of this theme, according to their website, have moved on and no longer support this theme. So that's going to create some issues. But inside the theme options here, there are some tools for managing aspects of the theme, such as the sidebars, and a few other things. Okay, and also the slider. Now the slider is what appears on the front page at this stage. There's a few other things as well, the calendar and just a few other things that are a little bit non-standard. So that's a bit of an issue just to manage from a documentation and training point of view. The theme used on this website is called Passion by a company called United Themes. And doing some research, I found that this theme is no longer available. The company is still active, and they seem to be using this new theme, Brooklyn 4.7. So it's quite possible that we could contact this company and ask them what they might recommend doing with this outdated theme, and they may recommend a change to another theme. If that's the case, it might be worthwhile considering other options as well. So what does a theme really do? Well, if we look at the front page, just as an example, and we've already had a look at how to edit a page and a post, we can see that normally when we edit a page and a post, we can control the title and the main content over here. All of the rest of it is controlled by the theme, and sometimes that's through theme options, sometimes that's through something called widgets, and there are some other possibilities as well. So let's have a look at some of those. If we edit this page, as I've just done, this is the edit page for the home page, you can see that there's this extra toolbar here. Now if you've only ever looked at this particular website, that might seem normal, but most WordPress websites don't have this extra menu here. So the way this works is that it gives some extra controls over the layout of the page. Sometimes this is done in a way like this, and other times it's done through the theme options, or perhaps sometimes through customize or various other ways. But in this particular case, it's done at least in part through the page editor. So for example, the header is selected through this page with background settings and the home slider. Now the slider must be controlled through some other way in the menu, but as you can see, there's two sliders available here. The home slider is the one that's been set up for the home page. Other page settings, the default sidebar or no sidebar, that's the area on the right hand side of the page that we were looking at. Let's just bring this page up again in another tab. Okay, so the slider is this element here, and the sidebar is this element over here, which at the moment contains all of the posts that are in the latest news category. Alright, so that's controlled through here. And we can move the sidebar from the right to the left if we wish. We have control over that. And there are a few other controls here as well. Do various things, and also some styling settings controlling the background. So for example, looking at the background here, you've actually got a changing background which are controlled by these controls here, and that is accessed through this. Now all of this is fairly non-standard, so to create a training package to teach people how to use this is going to be a fairly unique enterprise for this website. And if the theme may change, as I suspect it probably will because this theme's out of date, the training documentation is also going to be very quickly out of date as well. So it may be a good idea to think about whether we want to update this theme or change the theme to another theme, and then base training on that. Apart from the theme, there are a couple of other potential issues with this website that I'd recommend we look at. And so just going back to the dashboard here, if we look at the the reading settings for this website. Okay, and this this allows us to control what page is going to be the front page. So that front page is okay, but there's actually no page that's been selected as collecting all of the posts. Now that may be as intended, but there are some consequences to do with that, which I'd love to discuss with the client. So that's just a fairly straightforward setting here, which we recommend change and actually set up a what's called a blog post page. I also mentioned a concern with the permalinks. Now, it's not obvious on the home page, but if I go to one of the other pages, let's say Who Are We?, you'll see that the link up here in the browser address bar is by page ID. That's not particularly good for search engine optimization, and it's also not particularly tidy looking. It's also quite non-standard. Most of the time we set the permalinks to a different settings. I'll just go through that. That's under settings, permalinks. Most of the time it would be something like this, day and name. That's the standard way posts and pages are permalinked now. So you can see that typically a page would look like this, a page link would look like this. So that's just a setting change, but I won't make that change because it may have some other impact initially that we need to tidy up. The other thing I might suggest is having a look at the current users here. As you can see underneath users, all users, this is the list of users, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4 administrators, but those administrators, some of them haven't logged in for some time, so it might be a good idea to downgrade their role if they're not regularly logging in. It is a good idea to have 2 or perhaps 3 administrators that are current on the site, so that just in case someone loses a password, someone else can log into the site. So that's just best practice for WordPress administration. I also noticed some other things, such as, for example, on the About Us page, this colored box that these 3 paragraphs are in, if you edit this page, which I've got open here, this text is wrapped in what's called a shortcode. So that there is the start of the shortcode, and that's the end of the shortcode. That's a code for that color shade of green. So that's been created using what's called a shortcode, which is indicated in these square brackets here. Now I noticed that there is actually a plugin that looks after shortcodes on this website. So under settings, shortcodes, and there are lots of options here to create different styles, and also perhaps some other controls over how the content is displayed. So we would need to just check through this list of shortcodes to see where they've been used on the website so that we can create documentation based on that. And finally, on the home page, we notice that there's a bit of formatting happening on that paragraph there, making it blue. If we edit this page, which I've got open here, you can see that that is also controlled by another shortcode. But I haven't yet been able to find where that shortcode is documented. It doesn't seem to be in this list. So there's a bit more documentation to be done there as well. And the other thing about the home page is, of course, it has this slider on the front page. Some of the images on this slider are actually the same as on the background, but if you wanted to change an image on this slider, and that might be necessary because I noticed that one of the image links are actually broken. That comes up every now and then. I'll just see if I can find it. Might have been the first one. Oh yes, this first one. Yep, see there's a broken link there. So how do we edit that slider? Well, editing the page in featured header, I think it's there. Yes, it's a static slider. That's the home slider. Now the sliders are controlled by a plugin, theme options, manage slider, and general manage sliders. Okay, so I just click on that. That should bring up all the sliders that are available. Now, what did we find? This is the home slider. Okay, so you can see home slider, that's that one there, ID 5, not the home page slider, the home slider. And if we wanted to edit that, we would press that button. I'm not going to edit that button. I'm not going to sort of press that button to edit that slider, but just as an example, if I wanted to edit a slider, I'll just use this sample slider here to show how it's done. So this is the slider options here, and then the slider items here. So each of these is an image or maybe a video and a caption. So the editing of this slider is controlled under Manage Sliders and then selecting the appropriate slider. Okay, so that concludes our analysis of this website. As you may have gathered, there are a few issues that need to be addressed. We can certainly document and train for this website as it is, but there may be some other decisions that might need to be taken before we do some of the documentation and training, because it may change because it's affected by the choice of theme and some other settings as well. Okay, thanks very much for listening.